Inside Utah Politics.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. We do begin this morning with Representative Chris Stewart, who will officially resign from his seat in the U.S. House next month. Representative, great to have you on the show. You've been a pretty regular guest over the years. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's been an honor, and as I said to you earlier, you've done a great job. I trust you. You're a professional. It's been fun working with you.
Well, you need to say the other thing you said too. You don't know which team I'm on.
That's right. I don't, and all the other journalists I do. But I mean, you haven't put in your own personal feelings or views in our interviews, and I think that's the way it should be.
Well, I appreciate your accessibility, and you've always been willing to talk to me, and as I've reported on the work you and your colleagues do. Talk about this decision to resign. I imagine it was not easy.
Yeah, it was actually very difficult, and then there was this added layer to it, and that has to do with my wife's health. Well, she's a very private person, and she doesn't want the whole world knowing, and as I think most of us feel that way. But she had a stroke about a year ago, and you know, as time went by, it just became more and more evident. It just was very unfair for her, for me to be gone all the time. And we reached a point, you know, kind of late spring where we thought, you know, I just probably shouldn't do it anymore. And you asked me what a lot of people ask me, you know, since making that decision, a very difficult decision. You know, I didn't want to leave Congress. I certainly didn't want to leave in the middle of a term. I really thought we could serve out the rest of this term. But we know it was the right decision, and I've never second-guessed it. Once we made the decision.
That's the question I asked you. Have you ever second-guessed that decision since it was made?
Not for a second.
So you're still on the right path, doing exactly what you need to do.
Well, we feel like it was the right decision, and the right decision for the family. And, you know, there's still a lot of things to look forward to. But every once in a while, you know, we always say, hey, families first. A couple times in our life do we get to test that. And I mean, it really is true. And again, we feel very comfortable with our decision.
Okay. So you've been in office for about 10 years. I got here
11 years.
11 years.
4 days.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But who's counting? I got here about 10 years ago, and one of our first visits when you came into the studio, I believe it was on this show, we have a picture of. So we're going to go ahead and pull that up right now.
Oh, look at those two young men.
We've aged a little bit.
Yeah, well,
in that time, and the studio is completely different as well.
Yeah, things are different.
Yeah. More gray hair.
Well, life does that too. You're right.
And hopefully more wisdom. Okay, let's look back at your time in office. What are you most proud of?
You know, I've been asked that a lot, which is probably common when you leave office, and I've reflected on it just for my own benefit too. I know you look back on the last 10 or 11 years and think, well, what did I do? What did we accomplish? Was it worth the sacrifice? And I think there's a couple things. Number one is 988. When I went to Congress, I did not know that I would be involved with suicide prevention, with mental and emotional health. Veterans are the thing that drew me in. Suicide among our youth was the thing that kind of got me even deeper. And 988 took us 5 years to do, a real effort, very bipartisan, but still not easy. And it has saved hundreds of thousands of lives. And it will be there forever now. And I'm very, very proud of that. The thing I don't get to talk about very often is the work I did on the Intelligence Committee. I remember being at the border of Syria. This was, you know, when Syria was in, you know, enormous upheaval, just incredible violence, loss of life. We were evaluating a program we had put in place there. And I remember thinking, I was there to come back and make a recommendation. I thought, you know, I've got to get this right. People's lives will depend on whether we do the right thing here. And there's, you know, many incidents like that I look back and say, yeah, I'm glad I got to be involved with some of those things. Last thing, we are so proud of the work we've done for our constituents. I mean, we have worked so hard for people in our district. And I think that's such an important part of being in Congress is never forget the reason you're there. Never forget the people who support you.
Talk about that work you do for constituents, because that's what a lot of people may not realize. Someone has an issue with it be taxes, a passport, all kinds of different things. They call your office and they go to work on that. Yeah,
every time we meet in public, I remind people, hey, if your mom and dad are having trouble with Social Security, if your brother's a veteran and he's having trouble with VA benefits, if your cousin married someone from Brazil and they can't get a visa, I mean, the list is long, social or income tax returns, et cetera, et cetera. At any given time, we have probably 150 cases that are open where we're able to, try to intervene and help people. Vast majority of the time, we're able to help them. I mean, sometimes we can do in a day what was going to take them, months to do. very satisfying. And again, it's a very important part of the work.
Two things I followed along the way. You were working on internet privacy, a bill you're working on there, and most recently I had you on the show talking about social media. Are those issues that are already being passed off to someone else that you hope someone else will pick up the baton on?
Well, the second one is because it's actually bipartisan, and you see the billboards now where the governor and leaders here in Utah have the billboards that are talking about social media's impact on our youth. It's incredibly destructive for young people, particularly young girls, but not just them as well. It's frankly just destructive on all of us. But if you're a 13-year-old young person, it's even more so. Again, actually surprising, President Biden agrees with this. His own Surgeon General said, yes, we should do that. We've got Democratic support in the House and the Senate. We think we're going to move that bill, not in the time I'm there, but someone will pick up the baton.
Looking back, anything you would do different?
You know, I've reflected on that as well. This may not be the answer you may expect, but one of the things is I would probably relax a little more. I mean, there were times when we thought, you know, this is the end of the world, and you realize it's really not. You know, we work our way through it. This too shall pass. It's a very demanding job, and it can be very stressful. And I think I probably, with the perspective I have now, I would not take everything as seriously as I did, you know, for the first 5 or 6 years I was there. I think I realized, you know, a lot of things were going to work out. The second thing is I would try to be optimistic with people, because we end up talking about the problems. We end up talking about the challenges, and heaven knows we've got enormous challenges our nation has right now. But I don't want to leave people with a sense of pessimism either. I think it's important that we say, look, we've been through tough times before. We can get through this. I mean, my heavens, we got through the Civil War, the creation of the Constitution, World War II, et cetera, et cetera. We can get through these divisive times. And that faith in America is just so important we not lose that.
One of the conversations I had with you that really sticks out to me was after the 2020 election vote. It wasn't a heated discussion. That's not the way I roll, but we had a pressing discussion, I will say that, after you voted on the certification.
Yeah.
Would you still do that the same?
Yeah.
You would? Why?
Yeah, for sure, because we weren't trying to change the outcome of the election, and I think we talked about this. I mean, and in fact, when the media announced President Biden won, I made a statement, said we support him. We called the White House and says, you know, congratulations, we'll support you. But I was trying to make the point, as were most Republicans, this wasn't to change the outcome of the election. This wasn't to decertify the election. This was, in my case, one state, Pennsylvania. They clearly violated the Constitution, their own state constitution, and we felt like it's important to show that the state legislators, as our Constitution clearly says, state legislators have responsibility for managing federal elections. Pennsylvania didn't do that, and that's why I think that's why the vast majority of Republicans objected to that.
We have about 30 seconds left. You've already kind of explained this as far as focusing on the family, but what else is next for you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about things. The biggest thing is that it's just going to be fun to be home. My time in the military, my time in Congress now, I've been gone a lot. And my wife and kids have borne the burden of that. So biggest thing is be home. You know, I think I've learned so much, and I remember kind of thinking and praying about this, going, God, why did I learn so much, and how do I use it? But doors have opened up, and I think I'll be able to stay working and engaged in some interesting ways.
All right, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, President Biden